Okay, we are back live with another Between the Pages book chat, and today our guest is horror author Matthew Davenport, and we're here to discuss his series, the Andrew Doran series. And now I'm going to turn it over to him and let him introduce himself. So take it away.
Hi, well, thanks for having me. My name is Matthew Davenport. I've written the Andrew Doran books, The Statement of Andrew Doran at the Mountains of Madness, and what's coming out in October is Andrew Doran and the Scroll of Nightmares. I've got a couple of horror novels, The Trials of Obed Marsh and Satan's Salesman, and I've got a couple superheroes novels in the Broken Knight series, the second one in that is Broken Knight, Strange Worlds, and a bunch of anthologies, a lot of Cthulhu-based stuff. I consider myself a self-stylized Cthulhu semi-professional. So.
Okay, so first of all, tell us a little bit about the series, what it's about, what can we expect?
The series is kind of Indiana Jones meets the Cthulhu mythos. In a lot of Lovecraftian stories, you've got the protagonist basically either ends up insane or dead at the end of them. Never really fights back. They just brush with the weird and then they're done. I wanted to see what would happen if we took that same concept but made the protagonist somebody who survives it and continues on. So we've got our hero who's a very Indiana Jones / pulp fiction kind of adventurer, and he is basically trying to stop the bad guys, which turn out to be either a certain group of cultists or because of the time period, Nazis. They stop them. He's basically stopping them from getting artifacts that would help them take over the world.
Okay, yeah, I like that concept of the Lovecraftian and the World War II pulp fiction. So, what inspired you to use that particular time period?
Well, the time period, I was an archaeologist for several years, so I've always been addicted to everything Indiana Jones. But on top of that, the Nazis made really easy bad guys. And then I could build my own around that. Like there's a second group in there that when the Nazis aren't really, they're kind of the dumb bad guys in my series. The smart bad guys are the Traum cult, which is German for dream cult. And they basically are trying to manipulate all the governmental forces. And a lot of what I've done in my life has been basically inspired by Lovecraft and adventure. And it was really an easy branch off to say, well, I want an adventure Lovecraft story.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the main character. What's he like?
Andrew Doran, he's a little gritty. He had a little trouble coming out of the college. He grew up in Arkham and went to school at Miskatonic University, which are both Lovecraft locations. But he was bothered by the fact that all of those stories that Lovecraft wrote were about people breaking into the museum very easily and getting and the university very easily and getting these artifacts. He didn't believe that Miskatonic was working in the world's best interest. So he travels the globe, learning from other cultures, finding different magics, different subsets, different cults, and discovering ways that he can better protect those artifacts. But at the same time, he's trying to stop Miskatonic University from being the ones that house them. And then he gets put in an odd position where he has to actually help Miskatonic retrieve those artifacts. So he's juxtaposed. He's fighting himself in trying to help them by not helping them, and it's a lot of convoluted back and forth between governments, the schools, who wants what, who's controlled by who. And as far as he's concerned, he's more of a wisecracking, takes a punch to the chin, gets right back up, just like your classic pulp adventurers.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the cult antagonists. Are they based on a particular Lovecraft story, or are they your own invention?
No, so the cult protagonists are my invention. I was already taking so much from so many different resources that I just wanted to create my own. And I wanted a free entity because the Nazis supposedly had their own supernatural research group, but I wanted an entity that could break from them at some point and be a bad guy as of themselves. So in the first book, they're working with the Nazis, but Andrew Doran kind of stops that by confronting them. He kind of shows them that they're their own power in and of themselves. So they actually become a free roaming entity throughout the books that cause a lot of issues. And I didn't really base them on anything other than they just want power and to control everything. They're kind of, it's the villain mirrored hero kind of concept. He's trying to collect all the artifacts to protect the world, and they want to collect all the artifacts to control the world. So they're basically an equal version of him.
Okay, so would your main character describe himself as a hero, or would you describe himself as something else?
He would describe himself as a hero, probably not even a hero, but as not a good man who someday will have to be put down as well. He knows that the Lovecraftian effects of all these artifacts he's collecting are damaging him, changing him, and sooner or later he's going to need someone to stop him as well. So he doesn't see himself as a hero necessarily as much as a good guy, not going to stay that way.
Okay, so there's a lot of an internal emotional conflict in the character as well?
Definitely. He in the first book, he explains a lot about how when you confront the mythos, it damages your brain. You can't avoid it. And he's done nothing but constantly confront the mythos. So in the first book, you actually see a separate psyche get created. You see him dealing with, I don't know if mental health issues the way to describe it, but definitely just an internal struggle over good, bad. There's prophecies in Lovecraft. So there's prophecies that he's going to be a monster, and he's already been assuming as much. So he's constantly struggling with who he is, who he's going to be, and if he's actually doing right by the world. And just like a lot of heroes in any novel, everyone he seems to meet seems to die because of what he brings them into. So he's wondering if he's even helping the world a lot of the time.
Okay, so now you don't have to answer this question if this is going to be spoilery, but is he on a path towards being a villain?
He is on a path to making decisions that have costs. Every decision he always makes has costs, and everything from the first page all the way to the end has had costs. These costs are getting higher, and each time he makes a decision whether or not to pay it is making him a little darker. The third book, which comes out on October 19th, actually has a scene where I've had several of my beta readers and fellow authors were like, "Good guys don't do that, Matt." And I'm like, I know. He's trying to be good. That's the best I can offer.
Okay, so he's kind of on the edge of being an anti-hero, I would think at this point.
Yes. Then. And he might even, I mean, if I look forward to writing more Andrew Doran for years to come. He's my comfort food, but he's definitely looking towards, if not quite the anti-hero, at least dallying with the dark side to the point where it's questionable.
Okay. So what was the hardest scene or type of scene for you to write in the series?
In the series, the hardest scene would probably be, I don't know, honestly. We did a novella. I did a novella as part of the Book of Yig. We worked together, put these novellas together as kind of a connected anthology. And in that, Andrew Doran and the Journey of the Serpent Temple, the hardest scene was probably the dichotomy there. The bad guys there are actually presenting themselves as good guys to Andrew Doran. So me knowing that, the hardest thing was not letting him know that until the right time. But he still suspects it. So I guess it was not telling my hero the secrets. That would be probably the hardest thing with writing that scene.
Okay, so one of my group members here likes complex characters too. So
good, thank you. I hope you enjoy Andrew.
Anyway, so what was your favorite scene or type of scene to have written in the series?
My favorite scene in the entire book, in the entire series, is actually Chapter 5 of the Statement of Andrew Doran. It's called Geneva Reanimated. And what I basically did was a classic Indiana Jones truck chase scene, but all of the enemies are zombies, mind-controlled zombies. So he has to hop from Jeep to Jeep, climb up machine guns, punching zombies that really don't feel it. They're rotted corpses. But they also have a single purpose, and that is to do the Nazi bidding. It was a lot of fun to write.
Oh, tell me there was some goo involved in that scene.
There was goo. There's everything. There's everything you could see in a zombie flick. You could basically see during this scene, which is a bunch of it's funny too because they're all wearing tattered Nazi clothes, the soldier outfits, and he's just jumping vehicle to vehicle, just like in Indiana Jones, trying to get to the goal, and he's just fighting these zombies the whole way. Everybody's just, and he's got assistants at this time, and they're all just looking on like, oh my god, but they still have to keep the vehicle close to help him. So it was a lot of fun.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the secondary characters. What are they like? Are they a little quirky?
So the secondary characters, we've got the lead of the French Resistance you meet in the first book. She's Olivia. She is very complex in the fact that she isn't who you think she is. And I say lead of the French Resistance, I mean of this little group of French Resistance fighters, not the whole of the French Resistance. And her assistant is a man named Leo. Leo actually ends up being Andrew's assistant, coming back with him to America, being in multiple stories, being in every story just about at this point. Whereas Olivia, she is a very, I don't want to spoil it, but she has something about her that is related to the more you touch the mythos, the more crazy you get. And so she will haunt Andrew through every book, but she's his ally in the first book.
Okay, so what are your characters afraid of?
Andrew's afraid of losing himself. He's afraid of the prophecies. He's afraid of what he'll finally become, because he knows that if he snapped today, he could easily be the guy that destroys the world. Without any effort, he could do it. What Leo, his assistant, is afraid of is not being useful. He's a soldier. He constantly wants to be there to fight. And actually, in book 2, we meet Nancy Dyer, who's basically is another version of Leo, but she's the strong female lead. And she actually, what she's afraid of is being alone. Her entire story is about finding her family, who she's lost over the years, and she's lost to the mythos. And now she's made acquaintances with Andrew and Leo, and now she's worried she'll lose them too. So loss and being the bad guy.
Okay, so do you have a favorite character in the series? And you can say no if you want.
I do. Andrew's my favorite character. My background, I used to be an archaeologist. I've always loved pulp adventure, and I will always go back to writing him. He is by far my favorite character. I'd say my second favorite at this point would be, I recently introduced, again, in Book of Yig, a kind of part-time assistant whenever he's not in the main novels, Bethany Coombs, who is a serpent princess who looks human, and she's just a badass. She just wants to kick butt, take names. She's better than Andrew Doran. She actually knows the line between good and bad, and she's probably, if it wasn't Andrew, she'd be my favorite character.
Okay, so would you hang out in real life with any of the characters?
Probably Nancy or Leo. Andrew would probably get me killed. Bethany would probably get me killed. Olivia, for reasons I don't want to explain, would want me to probably kill myself. She messes with people's minds a lot. So probably Nancy or Leo. They're the most normal.
Okay, so you of course write horror. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. The Facebook user wants to know the name of the book, and it's the Andrew Doran series, but you can tell him the names of these separate books.
Yep, the first book is The Statement of Andrew Doran. The second book is Andrew Doran at the Mountains of Madness, and in October, the third book comes out, Andrew Doran and the Scroll of Nightmares.
Okay, and I've linked the series down below in the description if you want an easy way to go find them. Okay, yeah, I got to get back to the questions now, don't I? So you write horror, obviously, but are there any other genres that you want to try that you haven't tried yet?
So I write horror, but I've also got a couple superhero books that I need to finish up, and I'm back and forth. I don't stick to any one genre. I write kind of what I enjoy writing, and I'm looking to write. I've got a plotted out series called the Multiverse Protection Bureau, and that's actually kind of an experiment I want to work on that allows me to write in any genre. The heroes, if I want to write a Western, which I've wanted to do, that's kind of why I'm doing the Weird West story that's going to be coming out later this year. But if I want to write a Western or if I want to write cyberpunk, I can have these Multiverse Protection Bureau guys end up on a planet where I can write that. So that's kind of me setting up an experiment, basically. But no, I basically dallied in just about everything I want to write. Of superhero fiction, horror fiction, adventure fiction. I'm sure I'll come up with something later, but I do know a guy that writes pick-a-path stories, and if I thought I could do that well, I'd want to try that.
So have you tried romance yet? That's the big question.
I did write.
Oh,
I tried romance my way, and my way to try romance was to do a Lovecraft short story for a contest. And it was somewhere in time with Jane Seymour and Christopher Reeves. It was kind of inspired by that, and then you add Lovecraft horror elements, and it didn't do too well. So I tried. That's the best I can offer.
Yeah, my foray into paranormal romance turned into a horror story too. So I understand completely.
We do what we're good at.
Yeah. So I think we'll wrap it up here, and I'll let you tell everyone where they can find you and your books.
Yeah, you can find me. I have a Facebook page. It's just the author Matthew Davenport fan page. I also have author MatthewDavenport.wordpress.com is where I post not just news about my books, but I do fan fiction Fridays where I just write kind of fan fiction stuff, and generally just fun everything writer stuff. And that's about it. You can find me there, Amazon, anywhere they sell digital books, you can basically find me.
Okay, so I'd like to thank you for being here. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you for having me.
And the Between the Pages, we'll be back tomorrow with another author. So join us then. Bye for now.